By the end of the 90s, the full-blown war on home taping wasn't getting much better. In fact, it was getting much, much worse. And eventually, the music industry would lose some very big battles. Those stories are next.
More on the secret history of rock coming up. Let's get back to the secret history of rock with Alan Cross.
The fight between the music industry, hardware manufacturers, and consumers only got worse by the early 1990s. And this is where we encounter an American law called the Home Audio Recording Act. And because the U.S. is the biggest consumer market in the world, this law had ramifications around the planet. The Home Audio Recording Act looked at digital audio recording devices. While it banned the manufacture, importation, and distribution of anything that could circumvent those circuits that prevented you from making a copy of a copy, it excluded media and machines that were most commonly used for making copies of non-musical literary works, including computer programs and databases. You with me so far? At this point in our story of the history of home taping, we have to bring Bill Gates into the mix. Gates knew that Microsoft could push the evolution of computer hardware by making software that required ever more powerful machines. When Microsoft began pushing away from floppy disks in favor of CD-ROM technology, hardware manufacturers went along. By the middle 90s, CD-ROM players were becoming standard equipment in home computers, and these led to machines that could rip CDs to digital files. Thanks to that loophole about media and machines most commonly used to make copies of non-musical literary works, like computer programs and databases, CD-ROM devices in personal computers, the kind that you use to make your own mix CDs, turned out to be exempt under the Home Audio Recording Act. In other words, it was still illegal to make a copy of a copyrighted work, but because any American who was making copies using a digital recording device that was protected by the Home Audio Recording Act, there wasn't a damn thing the music industry could do about it. Some of these holes were plugged by a 1998 law called the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, which criminalized the production and distribution of anything that could be used to circumvent what was now known as digital rights management, digital locks on digital material that prevented the material from being copied. Other countries around the world adopted laws similar to the Home Audio Recording Act and the DMCA, but others, like Canada, never really got around to it. There are actually many countries where it's still illegal to make your own mixtape on cassette or CD. Another thing we saw was private copying levies, little fees introduced into the sale of blank recording media, like blank cassettes or blank CDs, that would be then distributed to people who were, theoretically anyway, being ripped off by illegal copying. Canada adopted the policy in 1998, which explains why the price of cassettes and blank CDs and DVDs are so much higher here than they are in, say, a non-private copying levy country like the United States. By the end of the 20th century, relations between the music industry and the music consumer wasn't very good. The industry and music rights holders were unbending in their opinion that they should control any form of copying, even for personal use. Meanwhile, consumers were annoyed that the industry had effectively killed off the single in many parts of the world, and that the price of CDs remained high. Too high, in their opinion. Now I have to play some Duran Duran, and that's because we're going to talk about something called the Rio. Stay with me on this.